Okay, we can go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody. I'm so glad you've joined today. We are like in for such a treat with Boyd Truman here today to share with us. Boyd is a double presidential diamond and he has 8 children. Do you have any grandchildren yet, Boyd?
Two.
Two grandbabies. So amazing. And I was just blessed to be able to hang out with his sister Gina this last weekend, which was incredible. So our team, or like myself, and I think Melissa was the first person on our team that had ever heard about the Symphony of the Cells, and it was like years ago. But anyways, I know that there's been countless of you even joining today that have had powerful experiences with the Symphony of the Cells that he created. And I'll just share like one of my own personal stories as we get started here today for those of you that haven't had an experience with the Symphony of the Cells. But my husband, if you haven't heard our story before, he was diagnosed with Graves' disease in 2016, and I maybe didn't have the fullest understanding of what was going on within his body and how it was impacting his hormones and even his mood. And so we were not in a good spot in our marriage. It was like honestly one of the hardest seasons, and we would argue often because little things would trigger him. And I was just like, I like was like, who is this man I married? Why does he get so frustrated so quickly? And I remember there was like a day specifically where he got upset while we were on our way to church because we were late, and he was driving crazy, and I was not very happy about it because we had our little baby in the back seat, and we got home and we're still upset. I don't know if any of you had ever had days like that. You go to church and you still come back mad at each other. And I just couldn't reason with him. And I remember like this idea came to my mind, and I was like, I need to do a Symphony of Cells on him. So I would like literally, in the really nice way. No, I just was like, Tyler, go set up the massage table. I'm giving you a Symphony of the Cells. And he went to go set up the table, and I gave him the amoebic protocol. And no joke, it wasn't like, a really loving Symphony of the Cells. This was like a quick Symphony of the Cells. It did shift my heart for sure while I was doing it. And then I walked away, but I came back 10 minutes later and he's still laying there. And I was like struck. I was like, what is he doing still laying there? So I go under and I like look at the table and he's asleep. No joke. In the middle of the afternoon. I think it was like 1 p.m. And from that point on, it was like our new strategy for how to like help him when he had those moments where he just like would get triggered and couldn't bring himself out of it. So anyways, we love the Symphony of the Cells. It's changed our family's life. And I know there's many of you guys that would say the same. If you want to share your testimonies in the chat, that'd be awesome. I know Boyd would love to see that kind of stuff too. But anyways, yes, this is Boyd. We're so excited to hear from you, Boyd, and just like even all of your experiences and the testimonies that you've seen. I know Gina specifically referenced one story about one of your cousins that she was like, Boyd has to share that story. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah, I have, there's actually 2 cousins, one on both sides of my mom's side, my dad's side, and both of them happen to be the same age, which is 2 years older than me. Both of them with the same struggle, accidents to their backs when they were younger. One when he was 18, the other one when he was 28, but both out doing, one was 4-wheeling and the other one was snowboarding, and how they both, the one on the snowboard, I don't know which cousin she was talking about because both are incredible. The one that snowboards and is crazy. He's from here in Southern California. I live 2 miles from him. He's a surfer too. He broke a few ribs the other day. He's older than me. It's just because he's out doing stuff. And I'm like, dude, you're not 25 anymore. Calm down. He's like, but I've got the oils. Okay. But anyway, but both cousins, and I'll get to the first cousin. I think that's probably the story that she's referring to, because he was the first one soon after doTERRA started that actually took me up on anything. And he just called me up one day, and it was around Christmas time, seriously, about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, just a year, I think, after doTERRA started. And he said, hey, why don't you bring the family up after Christmas? Let's have dinner on the 27th, 8th of December, whatever that was. And we went to hang up the phone, and he said, oh, and bring your weird oils with you. And I'm like, where did that come from? He's used to my family being a little weird. He's on my father's side of the family, so it's my father's younger brother's son, and they're a little bit mainstream, shall we say. Is where my mother's side, that was a little bit more the foo-foo side, coming from my mom, and everything always non-conservative, always questioning authority, always not accepting the one common answer as the answer. And my mom, highly intelligent, hence the reason for the book Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. And so the family on both sides are used to my mom being out there a little bit. But anyway, so we went up for dinner and didn't say anything about the oils. I did bring them, but I didn't say anything about them. And most of the kids went off to play, and our kids with his kids. And he said, okay, the reason I wanted you to bring your oils is because I had this accident when I was 18. He said, did you know about it? I said, no. He said, a four-wheeling accident. He went off this big, huge jump, and it went so high that the four-wheeler went upside down, and he came back down and he landed on his butt, and the four-wheeler landed on top of him. Now at 18, he didn't go see a doctor. He didn't go see a chiropractor. He was just in excruciating pain for 2 or 3 weeks. And then, as we do when we're younger, we repair much faster. And in fact, that's one thing that I'll be describing a little bit more in 2 days when I do the Symphony of the Cells training in Louisville, Kentucky. And it's to explain that phenomenon of why do we repair more when we're younger, or better when we're younger. One of those reasons is because we have so many more good ingredients that are still in our body. We haven't succumbed to complete poisoning of our body at this point when we're 17, 18. We still have way more glutathione being produced in our liver. We have way more enzymes and amino acids being produced, but we lose the ability to produce those things and many other things in our body once it's inflamed. And how do we inflame our body? And that's usually by way of diet, unfortunately. So the older we live, and I can't rule out even the vegans and vegetarians, the longer we live and the environment we live in, and some of the drinks that we drink, some of the foods that we eat, some of the cleaning products that we use, some of the over-the-counter meds that we use, some prescribed meds. I mean, it all adds up to poisoning of the body in essence. And anyway, so he said, so 18 overcame it pretty easily, but then around, late 20s, early 30, here came the pain from that injury. And so he said that he'd been on Loratab and Percocet for years. He didn't say that he was hooked on them, but I know him. And anyway, but when he said sometimes 12 a day, 12 Percocet or Loratab a day. Now, I've never taken any of that stuff before. I did hear about 5 months ago when I went through my own exercise of pain, or experience of pain, which grounded me for about 2 or 3 months. In fact, I'm still exercising and overcoming that injury and that surgery. But I think it was oxycodone for like 3 days, and it didn't help my pain. So I just quit taking it. But anyway, I hear that 12 Percocet is pretty strong each day.
Is that an opioid?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's strong.
So my first question to him, knowing that it was an opioid, I said, so how long have you been constipated? Wait, how'd you know I've constipated? Well, that's what opioids do to you. And see, so all of these questions I was asking him, if everybody understands, on this conversation and others, and especially when I describe this in our trainings, that the more you know, and the more you know about your products, so the more you understand the body, and how it works, the more you know about the products that you're trying to sell, promote, whatever, and then combine the two with help. So in essence, I've always said the person with the most answers wins. Meaning, if you have a lot of answers for people, you'll enroll a lot of people. You'll create a really big business. And that's what Sandy and I did. We just have answered tens of thousands of questions, really to the point, that have given people a lot of relief, whether it's the digestive system or muscular skeletal system or respiratory system, it doesn't matter. But when you answer someone and they know that you know what you're talking about and they have relief, they generally stay with you. They generally stay the course with doTERRA. And that is how you create the highest retention rate in the history of network marketing, right there. That's how you do it.
Yep.
And no one does that better than the Truman team. And so anyway, so that was the first question I asked him. And so he was wondering, well, how did you know I was constipated? But that was to let him understand that, okay, you already given me a glimpse into what's going on with your body. So he said that he was now down to 3 a day because he finally went to the pain management clinic because his wife, Cammie, was saying that he was a little bit out of control. And she felt like she was kind of losing her husband, you know, like he was all day long, very cranky, and other times completely withdrawn.
Wow.
And a workaholic. Anyway, so the pain management clinic had gotten him down to 3 Percocet a day. But what he would do is, he knew he had 3. So he'd take one at 6 in the morning to get going, right? To kind of wake him up and get out of the aches and pains. He would take another one at lunchtime because after those 6 hours, here came the pain again, right? Well, now he's only got 1 left. After, you know, at the afternoon and nighttime, evening and nighttime, he only had 1 left. But from 12 o'clock to 10 o'clock, you're only getting maybe 5 hours of relief, right? So what he figured out himself, he's always gone to the same gas station his whole entire life. The guy has lived in the same town 53 of the 56 years of his life. And he's always gone to the same gas station, convenience store to get his drinks and his candy and his donuts every day of his life, sometimes twice. So what he figured out was, hey, I can take a 32-ounce Red Bull or Monster drink and gulp that thing down, and that'll take the edge of my pain off around 4 or 5 p.m. Okay. So yeah, okay, that's what we do. Let's give ourselves a lot of caffeine and a lot of sugar, and let's trick the body. I said, are you trying to kill yourself? So so that'd help him for 2 or 3 hours until he'd get to his last Percocet around 8 p.m. to help him fall asleep from the pain, right? So this was his process and his schedule. Anyway, so we laid him down on the floor. He didn't tell me to bring my massage table. He just said, bring your oils, right? So we laid him down on the floor. And I said to his wife, you know, just like I say to everybody, take some notes. You know, this was maybe a year into doTERRA. I hadn't even written down any of the Symphony of the Cells stuff. It wasn't even in book. It maybe had been in around that time, but again, he didn't tell me about his back pain when he told me to come up. He just said, bring your oils. I didn't know what we were bringing the oils for. Anyway, so we did the inflammatory application on him. And I was teaching his wife and kind of giving her some tricks to do. And you know, about halfway through, I'm to wintergreen probably. And I'm like, okay, now, and as I'm explaining each oil as we're putting them on, and see, remember that with Symphony of the Cells, you've got their undivided attention.
Sorry, Boyd, 1 second. I'm trying to ask to unmute you, and it's Will it let you unmute on your end?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
That's okay. So yeah, about wintergreen time, I said to him, oh, what I was going to say is, see, as I'm explaining each oil, and here's another thing for you to consider, everyone, and that is doing a symphony of the cells or even aroma touch on someone. It becomes a teaching moment because you're with someone all alone. They've got their shirt off. Their back is exposed to you. Their feet are exposed to you. And where are they going? You have their undivided attention, right? Yep. So this becomes an educational teaching moment to teach them about each of those oils, what your experience is with those oils. And people say, well, Boyd, most of us don't know what you know. Well, most of you have experienced most of these oils to at least give maybe a testimonial about them. Yeah, I'm giving a little bit more in depth, but I'm also saying this is what we use this oil for. This is how this oil works. You know, wintergreen is a natural analgesic, you know, a natural painkiller, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, around wintergreen, I said to him, now, in the next 24 to 48 hours, you're not going to feel too good. You know, tomorrow you are not going to feel good. He's like, dude, I don't feel good already. Don't worry about it. So I get to the end around peppermint, and where we're doing the hot compress, because as I suggest in Symphony of the Cells trainings, and even in the book, you don't have to do a hot compress, but that's to intensify the oils, both the moisture and the heat from that hot towel. And some people, you know, you can do the shower method, you could do the bathtub method, just make sure you have enough coconut oil on or a carrier oil on so that those oils don't feel like they're burning you. But so I said to him again, I said, no, you're going to feel not good in the next 24 to 48. No, dude, I don't care. I don't feel good. Okay. So I'm thinking, okay, he's not understanding me. So we left those 10 oils with him and his wife. Mm-hmm. And I said, now we need to order you a few things. And because again, early on, Sandy and I didn't have a stash of everything. We certainly didn't have a stash of a brand new case of LLV. So I explained LLV really quick. I explained lemon and citrus oils really quick. I explained the need for enzymes and Terrazyme really quick. And I just said, you know, just have to trust me. So we ordered those 3. We ordered those same 10 oils so they could pay me back in essence. When they got the order, they just returned my oils. Anyway, now he said to me, he said, now I'll be the best guinea pig you've ever had. He said, I will notate everything. He said, for 3 months. He said, because it's December, it's the end of December. And I think it was around March 24th is when he had set his date to have his back fused. That was his surgery date. He said, so we basically got 3 months. I'm going to notate and write down everything we do every single day. And if it works, you'll have me as an advertisement for the rest of your life. If it doesn't work, c'est la vie, we'll see you later, no big deal.
Yeah.
So as we're pulling out, so, you know, grab the kids and we're going to leave. And as I'm pulling out the driveway, I said to my wife, Sandy, I said, he's going to call tomorrow and say, never mind. Because he's kind of cranky again, attitude-ish. You got to understand, you know, his relationship with his parents and being the older child and not being wanted and all these other things. And so there's the emotional aspect of what was going on with him as well, which I didn't talk about at that time. Talked a little bit about it since. Anyway, he didn't call the next morning, but his wife called. And so I had already left for the day. So she called my wife. Sandy was talking to her about how horrible the night was and blah, 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 blah. Sandy called me. She told me the story. I said, well, so what? And what's he going to do? And she said, no, he's going to call you later today. So just wait for his call. So he did. He called around 3 o'clock. And I said, so tell me what happened. He's like, oh, dude, that was horrible. He said, you know, I was dry heaving all night. He said, you know, stomach pains. I was sweating like constantly. I ran to the toilet like 6 different times. And so as I do in the audience, I asked the audience, what was he going through? He was going through a detox.
Yeah, absolutely.
One application of the inflammatory symphony application, and he was going through a major detox. And now we're talking, he'd been on those opioids for over 14 years. think closer
Wow.
to 16 years at that point, because he was in his mid 40s when we did this. Yeah. Anyway, I said, okay. So as he explained his horrible story, I finally asked the question, knowing what I had said to my wife the night before, that he's just going to quit. He's just going to say, never mind. Especially after he had that type of an experience. We said just the opposite. And this is where I say to people, again, the more you know your product, the more you understand the body, even a little bit, and you can put the pieces together for people, the more you'll build your business, the more that helps you clarify to people that you understand your business. And so therefore, for me and Sandy, it's never been about some scheme. It's never been about some system in doTERRA. It's been about education, 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 products, and the human body.
Yeah.
And that's how we built our business. And it's yet to give people not just a good experience.
Mhm.
I'm out and I want to give people a profound experience.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So what my cousin said next after I asked the question about, so what do you want to do now? And this is very important. He said, oh, I'm going to stick with it because you told me what was going to happen before it happened. You obviously know what what you're talking about. And so I'm going to stay with it.
Yeah.
Wow. I was blown away. But see, again, that tells us if people can understand that you do know what you're talking about and you're leading people down a path to health, to wellness, to emotional freedom from some of your past experiences, whatever that is. And they know you're in this not to make a quick buck from them, but to help them and their families be healthy and strong and succeed. They'll stay on board. They'll stay on board. So that's kind of the first story that just kind of grew like vines and went everywhere, especially in Southern Utah when we were living there. Because most of the town, again, my cousin grew up there. He graduated college there. He lived there, like I said, most of his life, except for 3 years. And everybody knew him. He worked in the school system. He was a junior high teacher, and then he took over. He was the only one that understood computers, and then he took over IT for the whole school district. Kept getting promoted. But the reason I say he's a workaholic is because when he'd finish with the school system at 3 p.m., well, then he'd go work his real job.
Yeah.
He had his own landscaping company and construction company. So he was always building a home. He was always doing landscaping. And that's just how his work ethic was. But anyway, he became a really good advertisement. Everybody knew Cranky Tav. That's his name, Tavish. He's the reason I named all of my kids with T's, because I just thought it was really cool. His name was Tavish Truman. Yeah. And then there was Tisha Truman and Tyler Truman. And then they had a sister, Mikkel. She always felt left out. And then me and Gina, we kind of had boring names. I mean, my name, Boyd, who's named Boyd? Most people think it's my last name. So I told Sandy before we even got married that I'm naming all my kids with T's and they're not going to be normal names. And he's why, Tavish. So I have a daughter named Tavia and a son named Tavius from Octavius. Anyway, different story. But that story grew and people found out about it. They knew the Cranky Tav before, and all of a sudden he was Happy Tav because he was no longer on meds. He was free from meds. He was free from pain. And guess what? He didn't even buy a notebook or journal because he was pain-free in less than 10 days. Less than 10 days.
That is so incredible. Like to go from that many medications and opioids and everything, like that drastic of a shift. It's like so powerful.
Yeah, and we did the same thing with my cousin here, Spencer. His opioid of choice was Vicodin, sometimes 14 a day.
Wow.
Pain-free in less than a week. Now, of course, LLV and Terrazyme and the citrus oils played a role there. And that's why I spend so much time in the symphony training. In fact, I spend almost an hour just talking about those 3 products. And so it's the internal use of them, but it's the external where we can help win the day. And I know some people only do external. I know other people that focus more internally. I 80/20 me, I'm internal.
Yeah.
But by doing that and taking away the inflammation inside, then we don't have as much need for oils externally on
Yeah.
our joints, on our skin, on our, aches and pains, on our lower back, whatever.
Totally. So question for you. One of my friends, Jeff, just asked a question in the chat. At the retreat that we were at this weekend, we actually did the Chi Symphony of the Cells on him for migraine headaches. He just found out he has Lyme. And then he became like really emotional that day and was just like processing a lot. And so he's curious if that's normal or if that's like to be expected,
Totally.
that there can be like emotional release like that after doing
Totally.
Symphony of the
So
Cells.
so Chi is one of the, what I call one of the more physical applications, dealing with the physical portion of us. But it doesn't matter if it's that one or one of the other physical ones, like the inflammatory application or the cardiovascular application. Those oils, especially when you put so many together, every human being is going to have a different experience. And some will sit there and cry, and some will get up energized and like, that's the best thing that ever happened. Other people will get up and go, that didn't do anything for me. And that's when I say, okay, well, give me 3 more tries in the next week. Because some people need levels and layers of it. They need it more than just one time, right?
Yeah.
And but yes, it's common. It's totally common, and people will react differently.
Yeah. So I know there's some of our like leaders that have been on this training that have already been to your Symphony of the Cells training, and probably some that are going to it at leadership, which is exciting. But for the customers that are joining that are like newer to it, I'm curious, like somebody just asked in the chat, how often do you recommend doing Symphony of the Cells when you're working on a chronic condition?
3 times a week. So just like with my cousin, both cousins, it was 3 times a week. It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday type of a thing.
Yep.
Because we want to create consistency. Remember, in essence, what we're doing is we're turning the body back to nature. It's become inflamed. It's become painful. It's become, very acidic, so on and so forth. And this is where most of our, diseases and elements come from, is being way too acidic, being way too inflamed, having way too much sugar in our diet, way too much dairy, so on and so forth. And everybody, again, being a thumbprint, they're a little bit different because of, blood typing and all that other stuff. But we need to turn the body back to nature if we are to heal our bodies. So it's not that the oils are doing the healing. The oils are just helping to neutralize and balance so that the body can mend itself. And so that's why, if people want to know why do you keep bringing up citrus oils, the 3 things you said is citrus oil. Well, the lemon and the citrus oils, we're talking about getting rid of acid right there. We're talking about getting rid of inflammation right there. We're talking about once those citrus oils start getting processed in the liver, we create more glutathione, which is another source of antioxidants. So we're having antioxidants fight the oxidation that's taken place inside our body. So so much good stuff.
So good. Can you share, a couple of people asked if you recommend a specific citrus oil?
No, I love them all. I used to just recommend lemon, but you got to throw bergamot in there every once in a while. You got to throw in grapefruit and tangerine and wild orange. I mean, grapefruit and wild orange, I think, have the highest concentrate of limonene. Thank you. Of limonene. And so it's use them all, and everybody will have their favorites. But even if you use an oil like Deep Blue as your favorite one for, say, your elbow pain, whatever, ongoing tennis elbow or something, switch it up. You want to switch it up internally and externally. Give it, in essence, you're reprogramming it. Give it different memory. Give it a different experience. And that's where you can really move forward a little bit faster, is switching up the oils.
So good. And then somebody said, to follow up that question, what are your favorite detox oils outside of citrus oils?
Depends on what I'm working on. I'm such a fan of protecting the liver, because this is where all of our blood is processed. This is where we need some serious health for the rest of the body to perform well. So if I'm heavy on protecting the liver, I'm going to be the Zenderkin soft gels and Zenderkin oil.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be with some geranium and cilantro, because that cilantro is going to help, some of that heavy metal damage that has been done to the body from anything from medications to, hairspray. So those are some of the others. Copaiba is going to be on that list. Coriander is going to be on that list. There's so many. So many.
Yeah, absolutely. And then nobody asked this in the chat, but I would just love for you to share. I remember when I went to the Symphony of the Cells training, one of my friends was asking about endometriosis, and you shared about Terrazyme, which I know you recommend for anybody with a chronic condition, but I'd love for you to just explain more of the why. I fell in love even more with Terrazyme after hearing you share about it. It's like one of my favorite products. And I'd love for you to share.
It's probably the thing I spend the most time on. In that hour, I probably spend a half hour just on Terrazyme.
Yeah.
Because every human being not only needs more nutrition, and that's what we're getting from LLV is more nutrition, more nutrition, more nutrition. Mm-hmm. From Terrazyme, we're getting these enzymes, and remember, the body depletes over time. So we generally create a lot of enzymes inside our body, especially when we're younger, but those are mostly digestive enzymes. And so we need all forms of enzymes, but we have to have an outside source of them, because we no longer produce them as much as we did when we were 10. Now into our 30s and 40s, we just don't produce them enough. Again, a healthier diet would, a lot of fruits and vegetables would help create more enzymes and amino acids. But the things that, it's endless. I mean, I'm trying to take a half hour down to 2 minutes and say that with enzymes, you're helping the acidicness of your body. You're helping to turn it more alkaline. What you're doing is you're giving yourself protein, is actually what you're doing with enzymes. Most of the medical science wouldn't necessarily say that you're taking protein, but that's what enzymes are. They act as protein and allow the body to mend better, to digest better and assimilate better and break down foods and metabolize better, get rid of the toxins better. I mean, everything just works better, including injuring your body, because that protein is going in there. Nothing better than protein for what? Connective tissue, from actual tissue to bone. So enzymes are a necessity. They have to be in our diet. And this is, for so many years, I've been speaking out about the importance of enzymes. And I was surprised after my 10 or 12 years of just vomiting on people about enzymes, that it wasn't more of a top seller for doTERRA. And because, I'm the one in doTERRA that has made that biggest push. And now it's finally in the top 10, as it should be. As it should be, because everybody's digestive health is going to be better. Everybody's, again, your bones and muscles and everything's going to work better with enzymes. So you're going to repair better, you're going to assimilate food better, and you're going to get rid of toxins better. So
I remember my second pregnancy, which was after your training, versus my first, it was like night and day different. Well, not night and day quite, but it was a different experience digestive wise, because I was taking one before each meal and then I was taking some before bed on an empty stomach. And so anyways, that made me fall even more in love with it and get more consistent with it, because I was in love with it. So somebody asked in the chat if there's any protocols you would recommend in general postpartum for all moms due to birth, recovery, motherhood.
So that's partly for, or would be more towards the forgiveness and emobic. Again, helping us more, not just emotionally, but there's some oils in there that are going to work with your glands to help produce the right amount of hormones again, shall we say. So those two probably. And the other thing is, another reason for the forgiveness application is whenever a body goes through trauma, whether that's a physical trauma or an emotional trauma, frankincense always needs to be involved, right? But the forgiveness application is just that sometimes you don't ask for your body to go through trauma. Okay, you wanted to get pregnant, I get that. And you're willing to do that to bring this beautiful life into this world. But nonetheless, it's still very hard on the body, extremely hard on the body. And sometimes you need to forgive and just kind of, and it's not about forgiveness per se all the time. It's about letting go. It's about being okay and just taking life as it comes and just saying, I allow this experience of my life, and it's not going to harm me, and it's not going to, get me off of balance. Again, the best thing to say about essential oils is they're neutralizers. They help balance all systems of the body, including the glands, to produce the right amount of hormones. So yeah, those two.
Yeah, so good. So I'm going to ask one more question from the chat, and then we'll kind of switch gears because I feel like everybody will ask questions for forever. But so when you're dealing with something that's chronic, I know like even in the book, there's some protocols that are mentioned, like there's multiple options basically for different conditions. Do you recommend rotating, is what this person asked, or doing the same one?
I do. I love to use different oils, as I said, as suggested earlier, but I also love using different applications. So, if you go to the Symphony of the Cells book and any of the other guides there's generally always going to be multiple correct answers.
Yeah.
You might look at an illness and there's 3 or 4 different Symphony applications listed. And so the person, you will always say, is that the first one you list, or is that do all of them? Both. I mean, if you only have the oils to do the one, then just focus on that one. But I love to switch it up. What you'll find though, is you'll find that after doing 3 different applications, when you ask that person with a chronic problem, if you're doing it on Monday, Wednesday, Friday type of thing again, they'll generally let you know, oh, I really like 2 over number 1 and 3. I don't know which one you did on me, but the second one was like, oh. Yeah. So, and you actually want to ask the question too. If they're not suggesting, you may ask and say, you know what, I like the third one you did. What was that one called again? Either way, they're getting benefits from all those different oils.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes the one that they feel the most benefit with, why don't we reuse that 2 or 3 times in a row and then start to switch it up again? So there is no rule or rhyme or reason to which ones you have to do or should do in a row. It's just, this is where they're a guinea pig. Let them choose with you. Some people don't want their clients or their family members to choose. I know one lady, in fact, the training that we just did at convention time in Salt Lake in September, she raised her hand in the audience. We were talking about the forgiveness application again, and she raised her hand and she said, my daughter and her husband were having some marital stress at the time. Mm-hmm. And she said, I took a picture, and she says, I know I'm not supposed to, but I was only sending it to my daughter. She said, I took a picture of the forgiveness application from your page, but she said, I cut off the part where it said the forgiveness application. She said, because if she would have known the name of it, she wouldn't have done it. She would have turned it down. She said, so I only took the picture of the oils to use in a row, right? And she said it worked because I didn't tell her that was the forgiveness application. She said their relationship turned around. Her friend was doing this application on her. I forget if she said the husband was receiving it too, but she knew what her daughter wanted. In essence, she was faking her out a little bit, was not allowing her to know the name of it. Well, say, hey, sometimes do the people need to know the name? I mean, if you're working in a professional environment, you probably should divulge that, let's use this application, or you'll find with it. But I will say this again, consistency is key. Just like for someone that has a tummy ache or digestive issues all the time, you know what, 2 drops of Digest-N one time, it's not going to do the trick. It's going to be 4 or 5 drops of Digest-N 3 or 4 times a day for 2 or 3 weeks to get the true benefit of it. And so many times people just give up after the first try and go, it didn't really work for me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Lay back down on that table 2 more times this week and we'll show you that it's going to work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a nurse practitioner on my team, and she like even completely flipped my perspective on this, because she was talking about medications and how that's like normal. Like there's many of them that they're like, you need like 90 days on this med before we can tell if it's truly working or not.
And
But
yet we're only asking for 3 or 4 weeks with people with oils.
exactly.
Or at most, I tell people, give me 2 months. Just give me 2 months.
Yeah.
You stay on this little regimen. You give me 2 months. And most people, just like both cousins, they knew in less than 2 weeks that, holy cow, this changed my life.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to remind everybody on the call, on our Facebook group, we have a link to Boyd's website where he has like a free course you can take that's like all the intro level stuff on Symphony of the Cells. And he also sells the book. This is the old one because I have the new one in my son's room. We just used it today. But anyways, I'll do one more question from the chat, and then Boyd, I would love for you to just share like testimonies, because I feel like that's like what we can't replicate. We do classes where we teach on all the stuff I've learned from your course in the past. But I would love for people to hear more of your stories. It's so powerful. So the last question I was going to take is, somebody asked, what's the minimum age you would recommend for protocols with 10 oils?
So I love to use all 10 oils, or it's usually 9 to 11 oils that we use in each application. With the younger kids, we just, well, okay, this is something you heard me say this many times in the training. With the young, the elderly, and the already diseased, we cut it in half to 2/3. So if we're saying that about 6 drops per oil is the norm, we're cutting that down to only 2 drops for an 8-year-old, 2 drops for an elderly person, 2 drops for someone that's already diseased, because the last thing because a younger person doesn't need as much. Their body is more healthy generally than an old adult anyway, right? They haven't had as much Diet Coke and sugar their lives, right? The reason that we cut that down for elderly people is, I always offend, but it's kind of the truth, that their bodies are generally more toxic, period. They've lived longer, they've eaten a lot of foods, and they think, the biggest misnomer in this world is that anything that we eat comes out the next 24 to 48 hours, and that's completely wrong. The bad stuff stays in. The heavy metals from your meds and prescriptions, they stay in the body. Hence, again, going back to Zendocrine and cilantro for helping that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's not necessarily about age, because we did it with our youngsters, even as infants. It was 1 or 2 drops per oil. We just use more carrier oil or more coconut oil, and just 1 or 2 drops per oil. Because if you use more drops per oil for an elderly person, their back is probably going to be completely red, and they're going to call it, I'm allergic. No, we're going to call it, you're not allergic to essential oils. Your body is full of poo-poo and it needs to come out. And it's either going to come out normally through your digestive system and through your rectum and your urinary tract, or it's going to come out through your skin.
Yeah.
And the skin is the biggest organ of the body, and it breathes, and it's going to come out somewhere. This is why we want to train people at a young age to make sure that everything is going out the proper way.
Yeah.
So this becomes another teaching moment that no, it's you're not allergic. 99.9% of the people are not allergic to essential oils. How can we be? Because they are the exact same chemistry as we are, the plants and trees and flowers. So we go into that description more in the training too. But
yeah.
Anyway, it's just in the very beginning. Oh, and then the already diseased, we don't want to wake up their system too much and have it be where the doctor feels like that there's contraindications with the oils. There really isn't. There's contraindications with medication. The only side effect that we can have with essential oils is that the body gets rid of garbage way too fast, or we've got a bout of diarrhea for 24 hours. Is this a bad thing? No, we don't want stuff to stay in the body. We want it to come out of the body.
Yeah, totally.
So,
yeah. Trusting the power that's in the body to do the right thing every single time. I'm like,
correct.
Yeah. two stories Gina and I talked about, and then I'd love for you to share a bunch of other stories as well. Would you mind sharing about your son that dealt with respiratory stuff and I remember like, I think you were on a trip and you came home and you told Sandy, like, we're going to do this. And then your other son that dealt with like colic or like digestive stuff as a little baby.
So yeah, this was this was 1992, I think. This was a long time ago, because that baby boy is now 26 and he was 1 at the time. So yeah, 25 years ago. Holy cow. I was to the first symposium of essential oils. This Dr. Penowell he's a medical doctor, a French medical doctor. He put this symposium on. There were scientists, there were MDs, there were botanists. They're just basically reporting on all things to do with essential oils for like 3 days in a row. And anyway, I'm at this thing, and I'm still in my 20s. I'm just barely into essential oils, and my wife Sandy's like, "What are you doing now? Why did you go there?" She's calling me. I called back home to check on her after I landed in Nice, France, and she had told me that she took our son, who'd been coughing horribly and keeping us up at night even. She took him to a specialist, and he had the worst case of asthma that this doctor said that he'd ever seen in a youngster like that. And she was freaked out because the doctor said that he would never play sports, that he would never be able to take part even in PE in school. He'd always have a note from him or whatever doctor was around, because that's how bad he was. And so Sandy was, understandably deeply, deeply concerned and upset about it. Hence another reason why aren't you here consoling me? You're off learning about these weird oils. And I just said to her, and it was an argument, and it ended basically by both of us hanging the phone up on each other with one of those fine, things. Mm-hmm. But I told her, I said, look, you do whatever you want. They prescribed him this, that, and the other, gave him a shot. I'm like, why? Where are we going with this? And, kind of like my mom questioning, not necessarily authority, but the reasoning of why we need an antibiotic if we're fighting congestion. It didn't make sense to me. And so the doctor said he'd be on a breathing machine for years, and that, once he could use his own little inhaler, he'd be sent that to school for the rest of his life. I said, look, when I get home, I just want 2 days with him. I just want 2 days. And I got home, and I told her he'd be worse when I got home, because I was gone over a week. And he was worse when I got home. And so I finally just grabbed a cereal spoon, and we didn't have coconut oil at the time. We didn't know about the use of coconut oil that much, but I put about a quarter size amount of olive oil in the spoon, and 2 or 3 drops of lemon, and 2 or 3 drops of cinnamon. And then I put it down his throat, down his mouth, and he spit it up because, cinnamon's pretty spicy, right? And so then all of a sudden his skin was turning red because the cinnamon, you've seen what cinnamon can do to you if you leave it on your skin. And so my wife was even more freaked out that I was doing this to our son. I'm like, again, you got to understand the chemistry here. Just don't worry for a minute. So I got smart, and I remembered seeing someone blow in their child's face to get them to swallow. And so, how you blow in your child's face.
That's how you did that. I literally tried
to
do this with Elliot one time, and it did not work. So this is helpful information. Blow in their face.
It didn't work well. So I blew in his face, and it took him a second to swallow it, but he swallowed it, and then he cried afterwards. But after the 3rd time, he just take it, swallow it, and go play. But in those 48 hours, his cough and congestion of 2 months was completely gone. And Sandy went and returned the breathing machine. She didn't fulfill another prescription. That child he lettered in football and tennis. In high school, he's played every sport. In fact, he's our oldest son. And so our younger 3 sons complain about how athletic he is, because they can never get an edge on him when they play sports. Although my 17-year-old son is 2 inches taller than him, this other child will still dominate at basketball. So that was not, I wasn't going to let that be our reality, that this child was going to have to be on medication and inhalers the rest of his life. And so with a little bit of lemon and a little bit of cinnamon with some coconut oil or some olive oil and some consistency, again, not just once a day and let's see where this goes. It was 3 to 4 times a day. It was me doing it with him, then Sandy. And then this was the moment that Sandy finally said, okay, I don't get it, but I get it. So I'm in. And again, this was
he again?
He was a year and a half old. And now he was 26.
Yeah. Whenever moms ask me about like safety with essential oils with babies, I always think of this story because it's so incredible.
Yeah. So that was Sandy's turning point, and she's never looked back with essential oils. She's better at it than I am. She's still Dr. Mom in our house, and she's still the phenomenon of raising 8 kids and making sure that they're all healthy and strong. So
yeah, so cool. So then your other son with the dill.
With the colic and the dill, yeah. So I've wanted doTERRA to have dill on an ongoing basis, but they don't. So if you've been fortunate to get that in your, the spring little kit or whatever they call it, anytime you can get dill oil, get it, because that stuff is magical with babies with colic. I mean, just rub it over their belly or their chest, and all of a sudden here the burping starts and the crying stops. It is wonderful to behold. So dill oil is necessary. Your
son, Gina was sharing how your son that you use dill on all the time, like he still like loves dill, like to this day.
Yeah, he just breathes it in, eats a lot of dill pickles, drinks dill juice before he plays soccer, because both of these younger boys are on the high school soccer team here. Anyway, it's just constantly part of our life. It is our life. That's the number one consistent part of our life is essential oils.
Yeah, same here. So Hattie asked if you have experience with Alzheimer's or dementia.
So that's a little difficult, because once Alzheimer's and dementia has set in, it's hard to reverse. That's why I'm always saying more omegas, more omegas, more omegas. So even at an early age, I wouldn't wait until someone's 50 or 60 to start taking more omegas. For me, it's going to be the Z omega, because it's so powerful and potent. I like the IQ mega, because just that little concoction of olive oil, cinnamon, and lemon, well, you can do that with IQ mega. There's your carrier oil. People don't think of it as a carrier oil, but it is. So it'll help calm down those other spicy oils, even for little children. But yet they're getting more goodness with omegas in their system. And that's one thing that we won't produce again, especially by the time we're 40, 50, and 60. We don't produce enough omegas in our body to make it beneficial. So we, once again, need an outside source of omegas and fatty acids to allow the brain, because that's what the brain is mostly made up of, is 80% of the solution of the brain is omegas and fatty acids when we're born. By the time most of us are 70, we've depleted those omegas and fatty acids by 80%. Hence, dementia and Alzheimer's and losing of your memory as you get older. So the earlier, especially if that runs in your family, I would be full time on the Z omega. In fact, that's the one that I don't skimp on in the LLV pack, is the Z omega. It's 4 a day. It's just 4 a day. And when I have to go teach a Symphony of the Cells class, it's 6 the day before, because it's 7 hours of this much talking. So anyway, so it's hard to reverse, but it'd be heavy on LLV, especially the Z omega, and it would be heavy on the neurological and so many of them, the neurological and inflammatory and digestive and lymphatic applications. All of those are going to be beneficial to, again, start to help the body rid itself of some of the things that are causing that to happen. Now with my own mom, it was 2 falls down the stairs, couldn't be helped. So her memory, she has dementia now. So there could be some old traumas to, even a car accident or hitting your head that has brought that on, but you protect the head specifically, or the brain, with more omegas, more omegas, more omegas.
Yeah. Yeah. Good advice. So do you have any other just stories that come to your mind of people you've helped with SOC or people you've heard at your trainings or anything like that that you want to share with us?
So which training did you come to?
It
Do you
was in
remember?
Texas, and it
Or
was,
Dallas?
yeah, in maybe 2017, I would guess, or maybe
Probably.
2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you heard me talk about Boyd's babies, or you didn't?
I'm not remembering right now.
Okay, so there's a little funny thing that we call Boyd's babies. And the number one consistent thing that we hear from people, or two, is back pain be gone, okay, with the inflammatory and chi applications. But the number two most consistent thing we hear is women that couldn't get pregnant that are now pregnant after they follow certain things.
I'll actually add to that. So I'm pretty sure that was at our training because my friend Danny was with me, and Danny is I think you talked a lot about endometriosis at that training because I think she asked or somebody else did. And she got pregnant almost right after her honeymoon. And they've now had 2 kids in the same time I've had 2 kids, and we've been married longer than they have. So anyways, they've had no issues. And she was told by doctors, that she would struggle big time if she'd be able to have kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that
Boys,
shouldn't,
baby. It's true.
that shouldn't be anybody's reality. I mean, sure, certain bodies maybe have a lot of scar tissue, or maybe have something in their system or from their family genetics that is keeping them from it. But again, 99% of the time, that shouldn't be people's realities. And I think it was just me listening from being a little boy, because some of the things that I learned from my mom, because she did have a challenge that she was unable to get pregnant, because between Rhonda, my sister Rhonda, and Gina, there were 5 years.
Oh.
And she couldn't get pregnant. And that's the first time in the early 60s that my mom started to see an alternative doctor in Little St. George, Utah. Are you kidding me? One of the most conservative little towns in America. And there was this alternative doctor, but he happened to be my dad's cousin. And he turned her life around to where she could get pregnant with Gina. And part of the conversation that I always listened to, and why my mom said that, is he was talking about fallopian tubes and how my mom, her fallopian tubes were clogged. Well, how do you clog the fallopian tubes? So it's the same stuff that I've been talking about: dairy, sugar, all of the above, right? Well, here's the interesting thing. So my mother's father, my grandfather, owned 5 Dairy Queens in Arizona. And my mom and father managed the one in Flagstaff when they were first married. But anyway, since my mom was 13, she was used to having a hot fudge sundae every day. Every day. That was her thing. She loves ice cream. Well, think about that. Her fallopian tubes are clogged. And it's well, wait, after 10 years, she couldn't get pregnant at 23 or 24, but yet, okay, but see, again, unless you clean it out, most of the crap is going to stay there in your body. Especially, if you keep doing the same thing to your body, then you're going to get the same results. And that's when, with age, we're just going to, in essence, clog our body. We're going to clog our arteries. We're going to clog and stiffen up with other areas of the body, our bowels as well. So anyway, just as I was hearing that story when I was younger, and then putting my life of essential oils and my learning there together, I just thought, well, that's pretty easy. Citrus oils eat up a lot of mucus and phlegm, citrus oils. So here's another reason that I talk about citrus oils so much. It's, 10 to 20 drops down your throat. Well, me, it's down my throat. I don't carry a water jug with me or anything. So mine's just down my throat, but we usually like to have it in water or chase it with water. But but doing that, and then again, the antioxidants and other benefits of LLV, and then we go back to the enzymes and the ability to break down, to assimilate. It's not just breaking down the food and assimilating what you just ate. It's also going and acting as a scavenger. When you don't have when you don't have much food in your body, and this is where I'm thinking, Kristen, when you probably first heard me say, take it on an empty stomach, right?
Yeah.
It's still going to be beneficial because it's going to act as a scavenger and go hunt down anything that it can break down and get rid of. And so time after time after time again, that's what we've done. Oh, and then we created a few different symphony applications. The one that's obvious is called hormone balance. So hormone balance, along with LLV, some citrus oil, and Terrazyme, you do that application 2 or 3 times a week, and that internal stuff in those applications for about 3 or 4 weeks in a row, watch things start to happen with your body. And it's the number one thing that keeps coming through WhatsApp or Messenger on, and a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, it was from Australia. Someone texted and said, we've got another Boyd baby, thank you. And it's just some of these principles that we teach. And I think more than anything, what we do with Symphony of the Cells, and what we do when I'm talking about this stuff, is give people hope and an understanding that, yes, consistency is better than a lot of drops at once. And to give people confidence that what we're doing, it's a lifestyle. It's not just how some of us earn an income, it's our lifestyle. And that lifestyle has helped us earn a really remarkable income. So again, the person that can answer the most questions wins, right? No, but there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
You get good at what you do. You hear these things enough and have your own testimonies. And that's, again, probably the second most testimonies about women being able to get pregnant following some of these routines. So
absolutely. Somebody asked in the chat about like men. I'm assuming it would be like if the man is the one struggling with infertility, I'm assuming it'd be the same thing, right?
It would be
very similar.
It'd still be hormone balance, because we're not trying to create, and see, that's where the misnomer again is that if a man uses clary sage, it's going to create estrogen in his body. Okay, guys, that's not how essential oils work. That's not how they work with the body. Okay, again, the essential oil is benefiting the glands. The glands produce. And so we're still neutralizing even what's going on in a man's body. Does it always work? Again, genetics, other thing going on in family history, we don't know for sure for every individual, but the basics would still be the same. It would, and that's why I say to everybody, look, if you're on LLV, Terrazyme, and citrus oils, 50% of your challenges will go away right there. And then beyond that, we can get really specific with the different applications, or with 5 or 6 specific oils for the system of your body that is in error, and watch it turn around, especially if you focus on it for 2 or 3 or 4 months in a row.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So somebody asked in the chat, Melissa Christopher, I actually had Gina text you about her. She asked how you're helping people post the thing.
So I like the inflammatory application, but adding clove oil to the application. And people ask where. Doesn't matter. Just throw clove oil in the inflammatory application somewhere. I'd probably do it around helichrysum if it were me, about the 8th or 9th step. But you want to add clove to that, plus the Zenderkin soft gels and Zenderkin oil. I'd be rubbing the oil, around my digestive system like crazy. I would be applying it there. I would be taking the Zenderkin soft gels. I'm taking them like crazy right now. I also like the capsule of clove and lavender and lemongrass and Siberian fir together.
Clove, lemongrass,
lavender, and Siberian fir. I would be doing that capsule once or twice a day. Now, again, the amount of drops, if you're generally a healthy person, to me, it's going to be 4 or 5 drops each, because I like to put 3 or 4 oils in the same capsule. I think a capsule holds approximately 15 drops, at least the doTERRA capsules.
Yeah.
So to me, it's going to be 4 or 5 drops of each oil in a capsule.
Yeah.
So,
And
and
sorry,
if it's
just to clarify, you would do this primarily afterwards or during as well?
before, during, after,
Yeah.
all of the above,
Okay.
all
Great.
of the above.
Great.
So
Yeah.
remember, we're trying to neutralize, balance, and we can do that with some really good plant-based ingredients, not plant-based, but plant ingredient, Mother Nature's ingredients.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. So good. And then 2 people have asked in the chat if you have any thoughts about heart palpitations that just came up randomly, no other heart issues besides that.
So the general answer would be some frankincense and rose. The frankincense for the calming aspect of it, even a copaiba could help that. But the rose, maybe there's some forgiveness needed there for whatever you're going through or had to go through to get to the point you're at, or simply the oil of forgive. But those are something that I'd be smelling on an ongoing basis. I mean, with the heart, we can attack it both emotionally and just breathe it in and have it right on our chest and have that aroma on a constant basis. But I like to attack it physically. I mean, attack it in a really good way. I like to do that internally as well. And the way we can protect that is still internally. I mean, the capsules are endless, truly. For me, frankincense, cinnamon, lavender, boom. Marjoram could be part of that. Remember, marjoram is a muscle relaxant, and the heart is a muscle. So frankincense, marjoram, and and lavender together. You're talking about a calming solution.
Yeah.
So there's a good capsule right there.
Yeah. And then one other person asked about dysbiosis.
What is dysbiosis?
Yeah. Like basically the gut being off because of different infections or bacteria or candida or whatever.
So the same thing will apply is in our basic 3 products, especially the citrus and the enzymes. If we're to turn the gut around and the intestinal tract around, we want to get rid of bacteria, we want to get rid of yeast, we want to get rid of acid, and the citrus oils and the enzymes are going to do that probably better than anything. So
yeah.
And it's still, what can we do exterior? Well, we're still using the common things like digestin and ginger and geranium. We're still doing that, but internal is where we'll win the game with the gut. So
yeah, absolutely. And then okay, there's so many questions. Hattie asked if there's a max amount of drops that you say to take internally. I know Dr. Hill has his chart like with like recommended ideal amounts or maximums. But do you recommend the same?
We can if you'd like. This is why corporate loves Symphony of the Cells, because I'm not corporate. I can say a little bit more.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And now I agree with the general consensus of less is more, especially in the very beginning with someone starting out with oils, especially the young, elderly, and already diseased, as I've said multiple times. However, after someone, in general health, I mean, heavens, I've used over 80 drops today and I'm still standing. I mean, I don't
really?
limit
80 drops, really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Whether it's both internally and externally, because I've already had citrus today multiple times. I've already had On Guard. At nighttime is where I take 3 or 4 DBR and 3 or 4 Zendocrine. So there's another 20, 30, 40 drops. I've already used 20 drops of lavender and breathe on my face because that's my aftershave. So yeah, my body has already consumed somewhere around 100 oil drops today. So, and that's a constant. That's a constant for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So expansive for me. I love it.
Well, Now let me explain why we can do that. I think that's probably what's missing. And this is what people will learn at the symphony training, but we'll give you guys a little preview of that. The reason we can do that as a human body, as a living organism, see, we are a living organism, but guess what? So are the plants and trees and flowers outside. They're living organisms. And guess what? Their genetic makeup is the exact same as a human being, another living organism. We're mostly made up of 3 ingredients. Those 3 ingredients make up 92 to 93% of us as a human being, as a living organism, and the plants and trees and flower world, and the animals. It's all the same. The same 3 things are 92 to 93%. Water, carbon, and hydrogen. This is why we blend perfectly with the plant world. This is why we don't blend with poisons, with synthetic garbage. The body doesn't know what to do with that. It generally, again, leaves it in the body as a heavy metal, and it stays in the body. And this is why most people that choose that regimen of 20 or 30 years, they start off on 1 med, and then within a few years, they're on 5 meds. And then within a few more years, they're on 10 meds, right? When did someone receive a med and it inexplicably took away their problem and they'd never had to use it again? That's not the system we're involved with. In our world of plants and trees and flowers, that's what we want. And that's why the body will get sometimes profusely sick before it gets better. And just like I told my cousin, you're going to be worse before you're better. Why? Because we have pure organics mixing with synthetic and opioid garbage. And guess what won?
Yeah.
The plants won. The oils won. But the argument and the fight inside the body is not always going to be pleasant. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So then someone asked specifically for post-COVID if they feel like they have lung damage or like their lungs have never been the same post-COVID. And then somebody else seconded that.
So it's going to be funny because here I go back to the forgiveness application, right? We've got to forgive somebody. Maybe we have to forgive God. Maybe we have to forgive the government. Maybe we have to forgive the doctor, whoever, for prescribing something or giving us something that some people didn't want. And I'm being serious with that. Because here's the funny thing, another testimonial real quick. This was in Slovenia. We have, she's not even on our team. What is her name? I can't remember her name off the top of my head. Since these last 2 years, I haven't been international at all. And to keep up with relationships, especially with people on other teams. But she came to 5 different trainings around Europe. She followed me everywhere I went, and she became a blue diamond. And then she had me come to Slovenia and do a symphony training. She filled the place. 150 people. And anyway, she said, after so much learning from me and coming to different symphony trainings, and I keep asking people, well, why do you keep coming back to a different training? It's the same training. And she said, like everybody else, oh, no. You may provide the same PowerPoint and the same training that way, but you always go off on tangents, and that's where we learn. So anyway, she said she was dealing with this lady long story short, dealing with this lady on our team, excruciating pain. She said, I remembered what you said because we did the inflammatory application on her, which is for aches and pains, right? She said, I did it like 2 times and it didn't even faze her. But then she said, I remembered what you said before about the forgiveness application, that sometimes people's pain is emotional. So go to the forgiveness application and watch it let go of some things. Oh. We'll come to find out she was the accountant for the family business. And, her older brother and her father were always at her to turn a bigger profit or to pay them early, or she was just stressed out to the max. So she said she did the forgiveness application on her. And before she was done with the application, her pain was gone.
Wow.
So sometimes we need that forgiveness and emobic and one of the more emotional applications to let things just alleviate from our life and our emotions and feelings. But anyway, Sorry, remind me of the main question though.
Lung
Oh, the
issue.
lung. Okay.
Both. Yeah.
So still, the forgiveness application would do wonders for opening up the lungs' capacity to not only heal emotionally, but also physically. I would still be working with the oils that help with mucus and congestion. The citrus oils, the fennel. Fennel is wonderful for congestion. The clary sage, we can take clary sage internally. And that's the thing I didn't point out earlier. One of the reasons that we're so focused on clary sage and that capsule, here's the capsule that we've helped so many women with. That's a capsule of rosemary, frankincense, and clary sage. There's your capsule if you would like to help benefit someone that hasn't been able to get pregnant. So clary sage is another mucolytic, which means it gets rid of mucus and congestion and phlegm. So it's eaten away that phlegm and congestion from your fallopian tubes. And the one thing I didn't describe again is, why are the fallopian tubes so instrumental in getting pregnant? Well, if they're completely gunked up with, think of it, phlegm, congestion, and mucus, you're talking about a webbing, a thick webbing of crustacean, really. When Mr. Sperm tries to get through, it can't. It gets stuck in the webbing.
Wow.
So clean up the webbing. It's the same thing for arteries. When people say, oh, well, my husband now needs to be on blood thinners so that blood will even get, no. Don't be worried about the blood thinner. Clean out the arteries. Why aren't we talking about foundational stuff? So anyway, hopefully that gives a little bit of input there. But anyway, clary sage would be on that list. That's some of the physical stuff to take internally to help with that. But to expand the chest, cinnamon and citrus oils and cassia. Yes. I'd be breathing stuff in like crazy, and I would be using that IQ Mega spoon with a few drops of cinnamon or cassia and a few drops of lemon this time, wild orange next time with the cinnamon, grapefruit the next time. So anyway, but understand that it's both the physical and the emotional thing. So
yeah, absolutely. Dang. Okay. One other question about post-COVID hair loss.
Have
You've been getting a million questions about this. I haven't.
Hair loss is difficult. It really is difficult, or I would have figured that out. Especially for men. For ladies, LLV is going to be your most important thing. LLV.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
There's not a magic potion for the hair. Sorry, I've tried it all for 20, 30 years now. Nothing's worked. So. But for ladies, it can be replenished a little bit better, but that's a full dose of some LLV for a good 2 or 3 months. Yeah.
And I would assume just doing all the other things to support the body systems. I don't understand all the post-COVID hair loss, but I am assuming that it has to do with like the stress of the virus on your body ongoingly, even afterwards. So it's just all about restoring homeostasis. And so even I'm like, inflammatory protocol, like you were saying, for some of the other post-COVID stuff, I'm like, that's going to support everything in all of your systems. So yeah. Gosh, this was so good, Boyd. Melissa just said in the chat, what did we do to deserve you today? Seriously. Actually, Gina told me that we're her new favorite team. I assume that it has to be like her like favorite team outside of, like you and her qualifiers. No, I'm just kidding.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yes, we're so thankful for you and all that you've given. Ultimately, I think just like in service of learning about the body to solve and serve people, and the ripples of that, like to create the symphony of the cells, and to join us here today, like, wow, such a gift. And just like Amber said in the chat, like, seriously, if you can get to a training of Boyd's, it's so worth it. It's so expansive. You'll be so empowered. I can tell story after story myself on this call today about how Symphony of the Cells has helped just our family. So
yeah. Well, thank you guys for having me. Hopefully that
thank you, Boyd.
Has helped some of you, and hopefully you have a lot of notes from it to help benefit you, your families, and your downlines. So
yes. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thanks, guys.
Bye, Boyd.